Is wine fermented? I don't know. This is my favorite flower, the dahlia. They're a little droopy here, but this is definitely, because I like the different colors they come in. So we usually have like 6 or 7 different colors. And this is a creepy gnome. I like creepy garden gnomes. I tend to have a whole collection of them. I would have more if I possibly could. And I play a gnome in WoW. My main is a gnome warlock with the pointy hair, so it's appropriate. This is Vork's office. So it looks like, and the funny thing is, if you watch season 2 and you see Vork's house, that's a completely different house. So we shot that on a different day, and then we come out here to Daddy's doghouse, which is Vork's office. That's the economy of scale, shooting as many locations in one place as possible. And this is a pear tree, but it doesn't put out. This pear tree needs to learn how to get along with people and grow something. That was rude. This is yet another creepy sculpture we have in our backyard. I think it probably was acquired on the side of a road somewhere, maybe on a road trip. And it's Joni Mitchell. And we got to get ourselves back to the garden. So that's a good quote. And that's my garden. So I'm going to grab a tomato and then eat it, and then go back and shoot some more Guild Season 3. I guess I'll see you guys at the con.
That's great. That was a garden tour. And what's next? The bathroom tour, bedroom tour, rooms of your house, Felicia?
I don't know what to say, but if there is an apocalypse, I will have fruit and veggies for everybody.
We're going to come for the crush. We should go to Felicia's place for the crush.
I like
right?
it. We're gonna crush grapes together.
Wow.
I don't know what to say.
I have Wi-Fi back there.
Should we go back to Twitter, I guess?
Yeah.
A couple more Twitter questions. Let's see. Now, Felicia, the next Twitter question comes. This is from Hakashis. Says, hey, will there be any more music videos? Because I love Do You Want to Date My Avatar? It's a fantastic video. Everyone's been humming the song the past couple of weeks. Yep. Do you want to make this a series of videos, or what's your plan?
I mean, that one was so hard to make.
Really, how long did it take to make that?
Well, you know, I came up with the idea while we were shooting season 3. I mean, while I was writing, I was listening to horrible, like, dance mixes. If you follow my Twitter, I actually crowdsourced the worst, best dance music of the 90s. Like Sir
That was research. That
right.
should have been a hint.
Absolute research. So that kind of inspired me, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to wear those Avatar costumes? Because I wanted to be a superhero, and I'm like, Hollywood's never going to hire me to wear a costume that hot. So let's just do it ourselves. And the cool thing about our sponsorship is that Xbox, Microsoft, they were totally open to it. They were like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I called Jen, and we just, you know, we made it. It took a lot of favors. You know, the stages were donated.
Wow.
My DP Omer is a really good friend of mine, but he shoots like huge, like ludicrous video. You know, he's a real music video DP. So he brought the panache and his crew on there, and
it was very smooth.
The editing, yeah, everything was just great. And the costumes, and Greg Aronowitz, a guy who literally makes like Transformers, you know, fingers that are sitting in his yard.
Oh
he made the weapons because he likes the show. It would have cost like a fortune to make those weapons. So there's a lot of people just
and you guys,
coming
I think you wore the costume. Was it Comic-Con or somewhere?
We did it at Comic-Con. We did not here at Blizzcon because it requires a crew, literally, to put us in this costume.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on.
So one day, hopefully we'll do another one.
Yeah.
That would be great. Another Twitter question here from Jason. Jason says, other than World of Warcraft, what games has Felicia played? We know you're a big fan of Diablo. What other games are you playing? I mean, you're so busy now working on the guild and everything. Do you have time even to play World of Warcraft anymore?
I mean, I do. I've been leveling my priest from 60 to 69 just the past 2 weeks because Jeff Lewis, the guy who plays Vork, has turned into Vork and is marrying his wife in-game.
Really?
In Grizzly Hills in a couple weeks. So I'm going to marry them.
Oh, wow.
Our guild made me an outfit that looks like Popish.
Wow.
So it's going to be great. She's a dwarf priest. And I love playing like PopCap games.
Yeah.
Plants vs. Zombies, Explosion Man, Rock Bands, Fallout 3, which I downloaded the extra thing, but I don't have time to do
Monkey
that.
Island, you were excited about that?
Monkey Island, great.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Bookworm.
Okay.
So all those things, literally, anytime I can catch some gaming, that's the only relaxation I have.
A little bit of a free from all the writing. All right, one final question for you here. Felicia from Twitter. This one comes from Jeff Tuck. Kat, why don't you read this one to us?
All right, from Jeff Tuck. What was your favorite and funniest moment while making the guild this season?
This season? Oh, gosh. Well, we've said this before, but there's an outtake. Work is car and some things. So there a lot of crazy stuff happened in that car, and that car had a couch in it when the production designer found this car.
Nice.
And it smelled really bad inside, and there, you know, being in that van was pretty disgusting and weird because there would the production designer would put a mouse trap you'll never see the detail in that car. And then also, while we were doing the GameStop shoot, a bug flew into a shot, but this is like monstroid bug, like a bug you'd see in like AQ, this big.
Right.
Flew into the shot while Will Wheaton was being all tough, and he literally was like, like squealing on camera. It's the best outtake you'll ever see in the history of film, probably. So.
All right.
I'll
Well,
get a copy
the Guild
of that.
Season 3. People can check it out starting this Tuesday on Xbox Live, and then September 1st it'll roll on to MSN and Zune, and new episodes premiering every week. Felicia, thank you so much for spending the time with us, taking us behind the scenes of the show, and we can't wait to see the new season starting this week.
Thanks a lot.
All right, well, now we're going to head on out to Joe, who's hanging out with Jay Allen Brock to hear a little bit more about World of Warcraft.
Hey guys, we're here out on the floor with Jay Allen Brack. He is a producer for World of Warcraft. And exactly what do you do for World of Warcraft? Because you're one of the big guys.
Well, I have a partner, Tom Chilton, who's the game director, and between the two of us, we're the spiritual guardians of WoW. We're the people who help decide what goes in the game and how it gets done and when we release patches and pretty much everything that goes on with World of Warcraft. We run World of Warcraft for Blizzard.
Okay, for our viewers at home, a lot of them, you know, you have future producers, future designers out there that want to be able to give their input. And I know your community is based on fan knowledge. How much of that actually goes into creating these games?
A great deal of it. We actually have a team or a company philosophy, which is that every voice matters. And so we have a very strong community team that is focused on looking at the forums, figuring out what the player base is, helping us make the right decisions for the game. So our fans and events like this give us a really neat opportunity to communicate with them and figure out what's important to them.
And I had the really good privilege to actually go on campus and see Blizzard firsthand and got to see what the employees do, how they interact with each other. And one of the things that I noticed was those two binders in the lobby.
Yes.
And it's fan mail, pretty much. And it's their comments, their critiques, it's their love for you guys. Does all that stuff go unseen, or do you actually use some of that?
We actually have a huge platoon of customer service agents who help us filter through all the feedback. Yeah, those binders actually have a special place in a lot of people's hearts. A lot of them are written by some of our younger fans. And they'll have designs for new races and things that are really exciting for all of our Blizzard titles. So it's a really neat opportunity to see the passion that really younger fans have for the games.
And being here on day 2 of BlizzCon, everybody's already anticipating the 2010 BlizzCon. What are they going to be seeing with World of Warcraft? Because we have people that are during the panels that were talking about, why not a World of Warcraft 2? Why do we keep having expansions?
I think the player base actually would probably react pretty negatively to a World of Warcraft 2. It's not something we're thinking about, it's not something we're talking about. We're really interested in continuing to work on World of Warcraft, make it the best thing it can be. You know, we have a lot of stories and a lot of content of things that we want to do that we haven't had a chance to reveal yet, and this is what gives us a chance to do so.
And I have to ask you, because this it's been bothering me all day, but the Goblin and Worgen starting on the same island together, and they're fighting. What's the deal with that? Are we bringing the war back in Warcraft?
Well, it is World of Warcraft, not World of Peacecraft. We are going to have an area that goblins will start that'll be for their race called the Isle of Kazan, and then the Lost Isles. And then the Worgen will start in an area behind the Greymane Wall in a city called Gilneas. So we're really excited to see that.
So you heard it here first. The war is back in Warcraft. But back to you guys on the desk.
We're back here live on DirecTV now. We're counting down the closing ceremonies, which are just a couple of hours away. We're going to have a level 80 Elite Tauren Chieftains performing, and also Ozzy Osbourne. He's going to rock the house here, and you guys are going to see it at home in high definition on DirecTV. That's coming up a little bit later. But there have been some other panels going on today, Kat, that we haven't been able to cover because some of them are happening at the same time. But we are going to bring one of them to you now. This was going on during the StarCraft II lore panel. This is the World of Warcraft class discussion panel. This is a taped panel, but a lot of important information for the fans of World of Warcraft.
Absolutely.
What they can expect. So let's go take a look at that right now. We'll be back with you live after the panel to get ready for the closing ceremonies.
Please welcome our panelists, Greg Street, Corey Stockton, and Tom Chilton.
Anytime when we have a Battleground weekend, which is every weekend, we will also have, for the week during that period, it will be that week for that rated Battleground. So for example, if it were Arathi Basin weekend, then for that entire week, the featured Battleground for rated Battlegrounds would be Arathi Basin. So that helps us concentrate the queues, get a lot of players in there. And it also helps keep the gameplay changing from week to week. That way it's not really stagnant. One week you'll have rated Arathi Basin, next week will be rated Warsong Gulch, Eye of the Storm, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here's a quick mock-up of what the PvP queue could look like. This is when you pop up your PvP panel in the UI. As you can see below, there's still the arenas and battlegrounds tabs. Where the arenas one is where you would see your arena team information. Battlegrounds is where you would see all your different stats for your battleground activity. And then the queue there has both battlegrounds and arenas at the top, so you'd be able to queue from anywhere for both of those. And you have your normal kind of pug battleground options, and then at the bottom there, you've got, in this particular example, the rated Warsong Gulch, because we're imagining that it's Warsong Gulch weekend. So how does it work? Well, let me tell you. So the basic idea here is you win a battleground, you gain rating. Your mileage may vary because it depends on the strength of the team that you're playing against, and it also depends on your own rating. So you win a battleground, you also gain arena points. Now, one of the core things here that is very different about the arena system is that there's no concept of a team. There's just the concept of you have to queue as a full group for the battleground. So in the case of Warsong Gulch, you have to queue with a group of 10 people. It can be any 10 people you want. So it could be a trade channel group that you formed. It could be guildies. It can be whatever you want. For Alterac Valley and for Isle of Conquest, the rated versions, we currently plan to use 25 people size for those battlegrounds rather than 40-person, so that you can kind of stick to the same sorts of arrangements that you make for a 25-person raid. You don't have to suddenly bloat your guild to try to get in there. Also, what's different about it is we plan to give you the arena points as you win the games. Now, this has implications for changes to the arena system in that with the arena system, we also plan to do something similar. And what we'll do is we'll limit the number of points that you can gain in a week based on what your rating was for the previous week. So the more rating you have, the more points you'll be able to get, but you'll still have to play the games in order to get those points. The reason to put a limit on it is so that it doesn't become a grind fest. We don't want players to go out there and feel like, well, it's the start of the season, I need 15,000 arena points or whatever to get all the arena gear that I need, all the PvP gear that I need. So I'm going to sit there until my eyes bleed and play games until I've got all the points that I need. So it's really important to kind of follow the model of arenas in that it's limited in terms of how many points you can get. It's a lot the same as we have with PvE in that we have raid lockouts in PvE, so you're limited in terms of how much PvE gear you can also get in any given week. You lose the battleground, and there's no rating loss, but you don't gain points. So one of the things that's very important here, it's an important distinction versus the arena system, is that because the group sizes are much larger for battlegrounds, any individual player has a lot less control over the outcome of the battle. So we think it would feel really, really crappy if you were losing rating and losing progress every time you got into a group that didn't turn out to be very good, or just had a couple of bad games or whatever. So in Battlegrounds, your rating is almost more like the highest rating you've ever attained. That's essentially what it boils down to. We plan to have two ratings. We have your personal rating and we have your matchmaking rating, kind of similar to the way the arena system works. The matchmaking rating will be able to go up and down because all that influences is who you play against and how many points that you build up as you win or lose. Or, well, you don't get any points when you lose, but how many points you gain when you win. So here's a quick mock-up of how the Battleground UI might look. We have, your overall Battleground rating, and we plan to use the same kind of scale that we do for the arena system, so that we can be pretty clear-cut where we can say, oh, to get the highest level weapon, you'll have to have like a 2200 rating or something like that. And then we'll keep track of your different stats for all the different battlegrounds, the kind of stats that you see on the scoreboards at the end of the battle. So you can see your kind of lifetime history or your daily progress as far as all the different stuff you're doing. The stats are mostly just because it's cool. It's kind of fun to keep track of that stuff, your win-loss record, all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, that doesn't impact the gameplay itself. It's just kind of fun to be able to see. Really what matters as far as the gameplay goes is if you win the game, you get points. So what do I get for doing rated battlegrounds? Well, we've got the return of the honor titles, for one. So rather than using the same titles that we have for Arena, because those obviously kind of belong and make sense for the Arena system, we have the return of things like the High Warlord or the Grand Marshal. So at the end of the season, we will, rate players according to what their rating was, pretty much exactly like we do with the Arena system, and we'll give out all the different honor titles for those different points that you are. And we'll figure out exactly what the breakdown is as to what percentage of players get which titles. We also will have epic ground mounts. So in a lot the same way that you get the epic flying mount through the Arena system, through the honor system, you'll get access to special epic ground mounts that you can only get through the rated battlegrounds. And of course, in addition to that, as I mentioned before, you get Arena points. So that's your ticket to badass gear. And you'll also get some guild achievements and levels out of doing it if you play alongside guild mates. As Corey's going to explain in a little bit with the guild advancement system, we have a kind of approach where if you play with enough of your guild mates in the group that you're playing with, then it'll count towards any of your guild achievements, guild leveling, all that sort of stuff. So here's an example of a dude with one of those old school honor titles, one of those old school battleground titles from back in the day. So that could be you.
I'm here today to proudly introduce you to a good friend of mine, a colleague, a best-selling
So in addition to
writer,
that,
someone
that pretty
I
much
have
covers
worked
it
together
for
with
rated
on a
battlegrounds. We also
project
have
for a long
the concept
time.
of Tol Barad.
His
So
name
Tol Barad is
is
something
Alan
I mentioned
Wake.
briefly in
He has a
the
problem.
panel
He
of
hasn't
the
managed to
Cataclysm
write
preview.
anything.
And Tol Barad is our
Now his
new
wife,
form
Alice,
of Wintergrass for
takes
the
him
expansion.
on a vacation
Tol
to the
Barad
small town
blends a
right.
combination of Wintergrass and the Isle of Keldanos concept from Burning Crusade. I hear a lot of times from players out there that they really miss the Isle of Keldanos kind of concept. It was really cool for world PvP because there was just a lot of spontaneous action going around as people went around doing their daily quests. And so we want to integrate that concept with what we have for Wintergrass. Hopefully also with spreading people out enough to where we have the capability to support as many people as possible at a time. So the idea here, and there's Tol Barad. That's kind of the general location of where it is in the world. We may end up having to move it somewhat. There may not actually be enough space in that part of the world for an island of the size that Tol Barad is going to have to be, but ignore that. Maybe off the coast a little bit farther. So while the battle is active, in a lot the same way that Wintergrass goes active every couple of hours, then the daily quest shut down and it becomes the battlefield for Tol Barad, and players will be trying to battle over control of the prison. In Warcraft lore, there was a famous prison that was on the island of Tol Barad, and that's kind of what players are battling for access to because there are secrets within this prison that both sides want. And what we're going to do is we're going to have different control points in different parts of the island that players will have to go out there and capture. And the current idea is that the first team to capture all the different control points will take control of Tol Barad. And that's one of our mechanics to help spread players out so they don't all end up in one place like the Wintergrass Fortress. Some of these control points will probably use vehicle combat kind of stuff, and other ones won't. So if you have a particular preference about whether or not you like to drive vehicles around and bash down walls and that sort of thing, then we'll have that in certain parts. And then in other parts, it'll be limited to more kind of pure PvP. So while the battle is inactive, the winning team is given access to the Tol Barad prison instance. And this prison instance will give you access to bosses a lot like the way we have Archivon and all of his buddies right now. In addition, while the battle's not in action, both sides can use the Tol Barad quest hub as their daily quest hub. We plan to have a lot of the main daily quests for the expansion be in this quest hub, a lot like the Isle of Keldanos back in the day. And so when it's in the off battle, both teams will be using these daily quests to get their dailies done. And in addition, the winning team will get access to a couple of extra bonus daily quests. So yeah, that and Tolbrod Marks of Honor.
Woo.
And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Corey, and Corey's going to talk about our guild leveling system.
Hey guys. So we're going to cover a bunch of topics here. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to get into. We'll talk about the levels and the talents, get into the professions, our concept of a looking for guild system, achievements, and then a couple of general features at the end. So we'll start off with the leveling concept. The pitch behind the idea of doing a guild leveling system is to really make people feel like it feels valuable to be in a guild. And people that aren't in a guild, we really want them to feel like they want to be in a guild. We think the game it's really fun when you get to play with a group of friends. You have a lot of people you connect with. So kind of the concept behind all this is really to get people into a guild and have it feel like it's valuable. So the concept of leveling is going to happen in a variety of different ways. Basically, there's a ton of different things that you can do, and all of these things will actually end up giving you basically guild experience. And we're planning to let you currently level up through 20 levels of guild leveling. That number might still change a little bit, but that's what we feel like feels good right now. So here's a couple different ways, like leveling in general. Any player in your guild gains a level. That adds to experience. Reputation ranks. Killing a boss in any raid or any dungeon. Rated battleground wins, as Tom mentioned. Also arena wins. Things like profession ranks that don't necessarily involve combat, but they're definitely helping the guild out overall, so we want them to contribute. Now the concept of boss kills there, that in order for that to work, you have to have a certain number of guild members with you. Right now we're kind of leaning to something about a 75% ratio. So in a 5-man, you would need to have 4 out of 5 people be from your guild. And then when you make that kill on that boss, you would earn guild experience for it. That same concept applies to the battlegrounds. As long as you have 75% of your team be from your guild, like 7 out of 10 in Warsong Gulch, you would then earn leveling experience for your guild. Now, each time you gain a level, you're going to earn a talent point. And these talent points can be spent in a guild talent tree. The talents that are purchased in the guild talent tree apply to everyone in the entire guild. We've got a pretty wide variety of different talents. I've got an example that we'll be able to show you here in a little bit of a couple different things. But the talents, they vary from things like reduced costs on repairs to things like mass resurrection. And the concept of how this works is we take the top 20 earners per day from the guild. And the reason we do that is because we want this system to be able to scale between a small guild that might say only have maybe 30 people all the way up to a guild that might have 500 people. So we do this by taking the top 20 earners every day. And that'll be actually displayed to everyone else in the guild. So if you're a guy out there that's putting in a lot of contribution, everyone in the guild's going to know that you're one of those top earners. So here's a couple screens of a couple of the talents that will be in the guild talent tree. So there you can see Penny Pincher, reduces the cost of all repairs. We've got one over there called Everybody's Friend, removes the reagent requirement for all raid-wide buff spells. Figured you'd like that one, for sure. Here's a couple other examples. So on the left, we've got cash flow, increases the gold drop rate for all kills from creatures or players that reward experience or honor. And on the right over there, you can see mass resurrection. And obviously, mass resurrection is down at the bottom of the tree. And we want this tree to feel just like any other talent tree would feel. We want you to have the decisions to be meaningful. We want you to pick these talents because you feel like they're really good for your guild specifically. The whole goal here is to create diversity among the guilds. You might be a guild that chooses to go all the way down and get mass resurrection there, but you don't see the talent right next to it is raid summon, which allows you to summon your whole raid to you at one time instantly. Now that might be something you might want instead. And there's just a wide variety of this stuff. There's talents that are great for leveling, some that are great for PvP. We try to cover the gamut. And yes, these are definitely going to be re-talentable. You can definitely respec your guild talents. So there's a second concept that goes along with this. As you're earning guild experience, we're basically going to convert that experience and right away when you earn it into guild currency. And currency for your guild is the way that you're going to be able to buy cool rewards and things that will help your guild out. And we've got a ton of things that you can buy with this stuff. We've got vanity items. We'll do things like mounts. We'll do things like standards that will have your guild insignia on them. So when you get that first boss kill, you can throw down a standard. It's got your guild logo on it. Take your screenshots. We'll have things like mounts that'll have flags from your guild, a variety of stuff. Guild currency will be used to pay for your talent respecs, for example. So if you want to respec your guild quite a lot, you're going to have to be earning enough experience to get that currency to do it. The biggest thing probably you'll be buying with the currency, though, is the guild profession plans. These are what allow you to make guild heirlooms. Now, guild heirlooms are going to be able to be built by any people that have that profession in your guild. So the way this is going to work is you'll buy the plan for the guild, and it'll actually show up on a skill vendor. The same way you would go to the blacksmith skill trainer and you would buy a recipe from him. Anyone in your guild that has the required profession rank to actually use it can go to this guy, buy the plan, and learn it right away. Now, if he leaves the guild, he then loses the recipe, obviously, because he's not in the guild anymore. So the kind of picture, I think you're kind of catching on. The idea is we really want people to feel like it's valuable to be in the guild, and you want to stay in the guild. You don't want to bounce around necessarily as much because you're getting these great benefits from being here, which really makes you want to have a great guild. So, the professions. The plan here is that everyone's going to have access to it via the skill trainer. We're going to do this also, we're going to have a guild vendor, and these are going to be in all the major cities. You'll be able to go there and spend the currency. We're planning to permission the currency, so we'll have a new permission in the guild systems panel that'll allow you to set up who in the guild can spend the currency. So that'll be up to you guys to figure out. Now, the guild heirlooms are bound to the guild, so if you're wearing, like, say, I don't know, a chess piece, and you leave the guild, that you'll get a warning, and as soon as you leave the guild, that chess piece will automatically get returned to the guild bank. So no more, you know, working up to that item that you guys have been trying to get to for a long time, and then the guy takes it and then bounces and leaves the guild. Now those items will go back and stay with you. So the concept here is that these work like our other heirlooms. They're going to scale with level, and we plan to cover, we would like to cover all the professions, as many slots as we can get for this stuff. We really want it to feel like we've got everything covered. So now, besides guild heirlooms, you're also going to be able to make just normal items that will also be great for the guild. And you'll buy these as plans the same way, but they might not make heirlooms. They might make things like, say, potions or elixirs, things that you can use during raids. And the concept behind these is they're also bound to the guild, so you can only use them if you're in the guild, but there's talents in the talent tree that will benefit this stuff. So there can be talents in the tree that increase the effectiveness of potions that you might, or elixirs that you might drink during a raid. And so you get those benefits by staying in the raid, in the guild. One last thing on the guild currency is you're also going to be able to buy reagents. So for some of these new heirlooms, we want to use some of the new profession items that people are going to be mining, and herbs and things that you're going to find out in the world. But we're also going to have reagents that you can buy directly. And that's another way that you can spend that guild currency. So instead of maybe having to use a frost lotus for every pot you make, you might be able to buy a guild reagent and use that instead. All right, looking for guild. This is something that we've wanted to do for a while. We really wanted to find a way for those players that want to get into a guild to have that be easier, but also come up with a great way for guild leaders to be able to find new members that they're looking for. And so the concept of the system is that we're basically going to let you filter based on various requirements of what you're looking for. The interface, we want it to be pretty simple, not complicated, because we want new players to be able to hop into the game, be able to find a guild, and not have too much difficulty. So here's an example of a mock-up of what we would concept for this. So you can pick your availability, weekdays and weekends. You pick your class role, your level. Now, this screen you're seeing right here is what a guild would see when they're recruiting for members. So they can say they're only looking for max level. They can say the type of play style they want, casuals, hardcores. And then down at the bottom, you can make a comment. For instance, you can only raid after 7:30, something like that. And then people could see this stuff and be able to filter through it. Okay, guild achievements. This is another thing we wanted to do along to expand the achievement system to really support the idea of doing something really great in the game, but doing it with your friends. So the concept here, like I mentioned earlier, is that we're going to have a ratio. And the ratio is basically going to be, we're shooting for about 75%, like I said. So in a 25-person raid, as long as you have 20 players there from your raid, you would then earn those achievements. We're planning to do new achievements for this system, as well as go back and take some achievements from our existing dungeons and raids and make them into guild achievements. So if you look at, say, Ulduar, it's got over 50 achievements. You know, we'd probably go back there and maybe take 4 or 5 total achievements, and they'd usually be for, say, clearing one whole section of the dungeon. We're not going to go back and take everything like Hot Pocket and turn it into like a guild achievement. So here's a couple examples of some things that we think could be cool guild achievements. Become a Grandmaster in all professions. So this would mean your guild, you would want to have exactly what it says, so one person that's a Grandmaster in everything, and doing that would give you that guild achievement. Perhaps completing a legendary item, something that typically can only happen within a guild. And these would be achievements that you get rewarded for. So here's a look at kind of a mock-up of what we could see this system looking like. So there's a new category on the left of the achievement panel for guild, and over there on the right you can see those. There's one in there, become exalted with all factions, United Nations, example of one. I think we actually have that achievement for single players now. Someone actually gets that too, but the idea of doing this for a guild. And then down at the bottom you can see the concept. It would be showing like your guild logo when this pops up, and everyone in the guild would see that when your guild gets the achievement. So finishing up, a couple new features we're talking about. One big thing in the interface is to do a guild news feed. I've got a mock-up of this for you guys to see in just a minute here. But the concept is that we'd show, you know, the last maybe 2 to 3 days worth of things that have happened within the guild, and this would be right on the guild pane when you log in. We're going to do a whole new UI for the guild pane, and it would show things like boss kills. It would show things like loot that's been picked up by different members of your guild, reputation gain, profession gain, characters that have leveled up. We've got a wide variety of things that can go in this, and it would all be linkable. So, you know, if someone finally gets that legendary and you weren't there, you could log in the next day and see that someone had just gotten their Valinar, for instance. And this will be filterable. So you'll be able to turn this on and off. If maybe this is info you're not super into, you can decide to filter it out, just like the chat panel lets you filter out different things. Another big thing is access to guild members' profession info. So this is going to let you you'll be able to sort by skill level. You'll be able to open and close roll-ups that show all the different professions. And if that member's online, you'll actually be able to look right directly into their profession book and see all the recipes they could make. Guild bonus. This is the concept of basically being able to get money for the guild overall. And so this is going to be supported through the talent system. And the pitch here is that you'll be able to spend a certain amount of talent points to up a percentage of gold. And this is extra gold that would drop. So let's say, you know, you kill Yogg and he normally drops 10 gold and you have 5% extra here. He's going to drop that extra gold, and when it's looted, it will go directly to the guild bank automatically. So instead of doing something like a tax system or a TIS system where every single bit of gold that every member of the guild gets taxed, instead we thought that this would be a little bit of a cooler way to do this, so everyone just feels like they're getting rewarded for their contributions to the guild rather than being taxed. Another thing through the UI we'd like to do is to be able to invite other guilds to events, and we think this is great for pug guilds. So you might have 2 guilds that only have, say, maybe 15 members each, 20 members each, but they want to run 25-player raids. This way they could invite that other guild through the calendar system and be able to have invites. So here's a couple mock-ups of this stuff. Here you can see the profession panel, and you can see there's rollouts to open and close. You can see the skill level for people. All that's sortable. And then over there on the right, you can see the concept of the guild news. So you can see people earning achievements, items that have been looted, bosses that have been killed. There's a little bit of a mix around there on the UI. You can see the guild experience now, your guild currency. These are mock-ups, but this is kind of the direction we're definitely heading. All right, so that's the guild advancement system. I'm going to head it over to Greg here. He's going to talk a little bit about Mastery and Pass of the Titans.
What's up? Guys excited about Cataclysm so far? It's going to be good. We're pretty excited about it. Mastery, I'll explain. So we have talent trees. They're cool, but they're getting kind of big. And the first thing we started to worry about is, hey, if we had 5 more levels, are we going deeper in the talent trees? And you're going to have to be like scrolling down, and everyone's going to have to learn new builds. And we also have this problem where a lot of talents are trying to do 3 different things. You'll see this a lot, particularly in some of the newer talents. Oh, Warlock DPS is too low. Oh, we'll tack a little bit onto this talent that we know they all take. And so the talent descriptions get really long and convoluted, and they're kind of hard to understand. We also have this problem of passive bonuses competing with fun or utility talents. The fun talents are something we want players to get, but we know that everyone feels like they have to get the basic talents that let you do your job. Your DPS, you can't pass up anything that's like a 5% DPS talent. You have to get those, and there's a lot of talent trees that have maybe just a few points that they can actually spend on what they want to spend. We think that sucks. So we've made ourselves a little bit of work for Cataclysm. We're going to take a lot of the passive talents and just get rid of them. And you will earn the passive benefits you would get just for spending points in that tree. Yeah. I've got a mock-up in a second. It explains. It's pretty easy to understand. You can still decide, hey, I'm a combat rogue or I'm a balanced druid, and you still get the benefits you would want, but you can get a lot more fun talents. And we can unkitchen syncify the talents. That's our big word for talents that are trying to do 5 or 6 different things, and usually the last thing is, oh, and also add some healing or tanking ability. So we're going to prune the passive talents. Here's some example of talents that you will likely see go away. Spell power. I mean, it's a fun talent, right? I mean, you need it. It's good, but cruelty. Hardly ever seen a warrior without cruelty. And fire and brimstone is one of those, like, hey, it needs to do this and this and this and this and this to make sure that Destro Warlock DPS is where it needs to be. So the kind of talents we want, that we want you to be able to get, and the kind that we'll add more of, are things like body and soul. This is a fun talent. If you PvP as holy, well, first of all, good luck. But secondly, it's a pretty useful talent there. It's not the kind of thing you would normally take for PvE, because you'll say to yourself, well, why would I take that? I need something that improves my healing. We want you to be able to take things like this in PvE. They may be more situational, but they're fun. Lightning overloads. It's a pretty cool talent. Things that proc damage or affect different spells in different ways, we think those are cool. That's not the kind of passive talents we want to prune. We just want to get rid of the things that are like, your fire damage is now 5% higher. And then Juggernaut is a great talent. You might notice on Body and Soul and Juggernaut specifically here that we went ahead and took the passive things out of here. So the Mortal Strike bonus in Juggernaut isn't there anymore, because the charge should be interesting enough on its own, even for PvE. So if you spend talent points in a tree, you'll get 3 types of passive bonuses. The first one is the one that just makes you do your job better. So it'll either be damage, healing, or tanking, depending on the tree, except for Death Knights. We have no idea what the hell we're going to do for that. The second passive bonus will be something that feels very much like a stat. You can kind of imagine where these will plug in already. Some trees care a lot about crit. Other trees might care a lot about haste. And then the third bonus is something that's going to be very unique for your specs. There's going to be 30 of these, one for each tree. And I'll give you an example of how this will work out. And then the new stat that we put on gear, the mastery stat, will modify this third one. So when you look at a piece of gear, it might say, oh, increases my poison damage, while a balanced druid might look at the same piece of gear and it'll increase a different stat for them. And then if you use dual spec or respec, the mastery you have will go ahead and switch to modify what you do better. So this is what we want to do with the talent UI for Cataclysm. We want to be able to show it 3 panes, no scrolling. And then you can see the passive bonuses you get for spending points in each tree. You can imagine as you spend an extra point in Assassination, those 3 numbers on the bottom there, melee damage, melee crit, and poison damage would all go up. And then you can see that in the combat tree, melee damage still goes up because you're a rogue, you need to do more melee damage, but then something else might change. In this case, armor penetration. And then subtlety would be different. So there might be diminishing returns so that you don't want to keep piling all of your points into one tree, like you don't want to go 61 into combat or something, but there's also benefits to going sideways into different trees, and you don't have to worry about the specific talent that you get so much as just spending points in that tree. We also put armor penetration as green for the combat tree. This is because this character has mastery stat on their gear, and it's improving their armor penetration even more. So like we normally show stats that are affected by gear show up as green. In this case, the character has most of their points spent in combat, so that's the mastery stat's going to go. Got all that? Here's some example of passive bonuses. We haven't worked all these out, and this is the kind of thing that's going to take a ton of iteration. But for example, Assassination Mastery might passively improve all of your poison damage. Subtlety might lower energy costs for your attacks. Beastmaster might improve pet damage, and Marksman might improve focus regen, because of course, hunters no longer care about mana. And then I mentioned the mastery stat already. It's a new tertiary stat that'll appear on your gear. Often you'll be trading off crit versus haste or mastery, because we're not going to put armor penetration on gear anymore. We think it's really, even though these are all can still be a little mathy and affect your damage or healing or whatever in different ways, it's a little more intuitive to look at it to know, oh, if my crit goes up by 1%, I kind of know what that means based on my class and the talents that modify that. And the same thing would be true of haste. And then for mastery, you could say, hey, I'm a ret paladin. I know mastery is going to improve. Well, I'll show you in a second. It always picks the tree with the most points. We're not sure yet what will happen if you manage to spend an equal number of points in each tree. That's pretty rare. And for example, 51 points in Assassination would improve your poison damage. All right, here is a Ret Pally example. And you can see here that because Mr. To the Ground here has spent 58 points in Ret, he gets melee damage, melee crit, and then ability cooldowns would be the one affected by the mastery stat. And you can see over on the character sheet with the tooltip, you'll always know what is exactly affected. You're not going to have to guess too much if you change specs a lot. Everyone will look at mastery. It works very similar. If you're familiar with the way feral druids, when they look at a weapon, it'll tell them their feral attack power conversion from that weapon, even though other players may not see it. So it'll be kind of similar there. All right, last part of the talk. So we have this new feature called Paths of the Titans. And what we want to do with this feature is reward character progression at max level. What happens is you get Wrath of the Lich King, you're jamming out your levels, you get 10 levels to go. It's really, really fun. You're like constantly improving, new abilities, new ranks, new talent points. Then you hit 80 and it really slows down. And you'll get loot. Whether you raid or PvP, you'll slowly improve your loot over time, but basically that really fun period of leveling up has kind of come to a stop. And one way to do that is just keep making more and more levels. Hey, maybe Cataclysm gives you 15 or 20 new character levels. That would give us a headache. So instead, we wanted to come up with a system that rewards progression at max level without having to necessarily go into more talent points, more abilities. So the main reward for the paths is to unlock a new type of glyph called an ancient glyph. Now, these glyphs work a little differently than the glyphs you're used to from your class glyphs. We're really happy with what Inscription has done, and we think the glyphs have added some depth to the game, but we also think the feature's not 100% there. We've always thought it had a little more potential we could milk out of it, and so we're kind of uniting that with the path system here. They are themed for the Titans, and they're not at all part of the Inscription profession. So Inscription will continue to make your class-specific major and minor glyphs. Ancient glyphs is from an entirely new mechanic here. And one of the exciting things about the paths is they're not class-specific. There's not a rogue path to follow. You guys can debate as long as you want about what's the best path for rogues, and we're all cool with that. But one of the exciting parts is that you can mix and match the specific path you choose to follow with the talent trees you already have. So the Cataclysm is a time of great upheaval, right? I mean, zones are changing. What everyone thought they knew about the world is kind of eroding. And so in this time of turmoil, people are turning to like new sources of power. And one of the things that we've learned from Old War is we've learned a little more about the existence of the Titans. And so these cults have sprung up throughout Azeroth, and they'll probably particularly be focused in the new zones, places like the Twilight Highlands. You can choose to align yourself with one of these cults, and in return, you can progress down a path. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then as you progress down the path, you're getting these new ancient glyph sockets. And ultimately, you get new ancient glyphs to put in the sockets. So one of the cool points about this is you earn these ancient glyphs through archaeology. So as you're leveling up, archaeology is giving you cool things, perhaps new items, new vanity pets. You can trade some stuff in for gold and things like that. But then once you hit level 85, you can start using archaeology to trade into these cults, and in return, they'll give you the glyphs that you'll use, which I just said. And one of the cool things is, kind of like with your class glyphs, you have choices. Even though you pick a particular path, you still have choices of what glyph you want to put in that slot. So if you're a healer, maybe you want a healing glyph. Maybe there isn't always a healing glyph at every point along the path, though. And of course, you can respec. You're not locked into any of these decisions. You have to unlock them originally, but once you do, you can tie it to dual spec or whatever you want. So these are 6 of the known Titans of Azeroth, and 6 of the paths that we might introduce when Cataclysm goes live. You're probably familiar with several of these names. Ooh, shiny. I guess what we have here is an undead druid, which we are not officially announcing in any way, shape, or form. So in the middle are your class glyphs, and we think we're going to go ahead and change the UI to actually reinforce what talents or abilities the glyphs are affecting. We know it can sometimes be confusing to look at a really cool-looking artistic symbol, but not necessarily know if that is your glyph of lacerate or your glyph of swipe or whatever. So I don't know that this color palette is final. It's probably not, but you get the basic idea. There's a big claw in the middle because you're a feral druid, and you have 6 of your class. The gold ones are the major, and the blue ones are the minor glyphs. And now around the outside are the new path glyphs. When you start out at level 80, you won't have any path glyphs. You won't get any of them all until level 85. This is all maximum character level progression stuff. And then slowly over time, you'll earn these new glyphs. You can see we go all the way up to rank 10. I don't think we'll offer rank 10 when Cataclysm first ships, but one of the things we think is cool is to gradually unlock new ranks over time. So when patch, I guess it would be 4.1 or 4.2 would come out, one of the bullet points might be now you can achieve rank 8 in your path. We'll also theme the UI, and maybe even the path itself will change shape depending on which Titan you're aligning yourself with. This is the, lots of lightning here for Golganath. Now, here's some examples of the actual glyphs you'll unlock. Remember, these have to be, I don't want to say generic, but they're not going to be class-specific. They're not going to be modifying your Sinister Strike, for example. They have to be things that might benefit different types of classes. So an example of a rank 1 glyph here is reducing the duration of bleed and stun effects, which can obviously be useful in certain situations. Here's a rank 2 example. Bandages heal targets by additional amount. But if you don't like that one, you can take the Fortification talent instead, which is a clicky ability with a longer cooldown but instant that lets nearby allies take less damage for a little bit. So you can see these are game-changing in some sense. Once you get these, you're going to have a couple more abilities you didn't have before, and you're going to have access to different power you had before, but not a whole new level. And then here's an example of a rank 3. You can see they're getting a little more powerful here. Increases the damage dealt following a critical strike. So you can see a lot of DPS classes might want this, but those with high crit might want it more than others, and say healer or tank might not find this one as attractive. They might have another glyph they can pick instead in rank 3, or they may choose a whole new path instead. Now, one of the things that's important is everyone eventually gets their ancient glyphs. This isn't supposed to be the kind of thing where really, really hardcore players have access to the feature and more casual players never get there. We want everyone to eventually get their glyphs. It may be more like raid progression, where the very dedicated hardcore players get them faster, but everyone could eventually get there. The goal is that we want to gate the content. This isn't supposed to be a nasty rep grind. This isn't, Sons of Hodier 2.0 or anything like that. We're not entirely sure how we'll gate it, but we have a concept that maybe there's max progress you can earn per week. So the new rank of glyphs becomes unlocked. You can work towards it, but once you get there, now you're good for a while. The goal really is to get you to want to come back and take a look at your character every now and then, not necessarily to power level your way all the way through. That's what levels are for. And again, catch-up mechanisms are important. And I've said new ranks introduced over time. You might see a patch note that says now you can reach rank 5. One of the cool things is the concept of the Titans is kind of expandable. We've never said exactly how many there are, and it's very easy for us to add more of them. So we might add whole additional paths in actual content patches. So maybe when Cataclysm ships, you'll get 3 paths to choose from, but then when 4.1 comes out, there's a whole new path you can choose instead. You can respec to that path. Thanks a lot.
BlizzCon live on DirecTV continues. We are just moments away from the closing ceremonies. Level 80 Elite Tauren Chieftains and Ozzy Osbourne live at BlizzCon.
Finally.
You're going to see it all right here on DirecTV, live and in high definition. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Keighley again with Kat Hunter and Joe Garcia as we count down these final moments of BlizzCon 2009. There's lots more you're not going to want to miss. I think it's going to be an amazing closing ceremony tonight. We saw a bit of Ozzy's rehearsal, and he is going to rock the house tonight.
I brought earplugs. I'm ready.
Okay. That's not very rock. That's not very rock.
No,
you're going to be in the front row dancing, no earplugs?
The earplugs, trust me.
All right, but listen, I've got something more exciting than Ozzy Osbourne. You know what it is?
It's your IGN countdown.
It is the IGN countdown. It is time finally to close out the IGN countdown.
Okay.
And at number 4,
yes,
we have Diablo, the original.
Okay.
At number 3, we have Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. Number 2, the one and only StarCraft, the original.
Drum roll, please.
And number 1,
let me guess.
a little old game we know called World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft.
That's
number
it,
one,
boys and girls.
I was off by 1. Yesterday I said StarCraft would win.
Warcraft was number 1.
If you don't agree with the decision, go to IGN.com and read the full story, and you can see what their reasoning was.
All right, well, thank you, Kat. And speaking of World of Warcraft, we're going to go back for some more bonus coverage now. This is the Q&A part of the panel you just saw with the class system. So here's the Q&A. We'll be back in a few minutes to get ready for the closing ceremonies, but enjoy this right now.
Are you going to support a merge to, or is all that effort that one guild did going to kind of get discarded?
The way it would work would be, for example, if you would have to choose which guild you were going to merge into. So if people left their guild and then went into the other guild, they would get all the benefits of the other guild when they join. So say if you have 2, right, and one disbands and the first guild takes on all those members, then at that point, all those new members are going to get all the benefits of the first guild, like all the talent tree things. They'd get access to all that guild currency. They'd get access to their guild heirlooms.
But the general idea is that we're going to support all types of play styles as far as guild advancement goes. It's not going to be exclusively guild advancement through raiding, for example. So even though you may not be getting your guild advancement by raiding because you don't make up 75% of the raid, you'll still be getting guild advancement by doing things like daily quests. So your guild can still progress.
Thanks. All right, next question.
So all of the talents that you've talked about for guilds have been like quality of life sorts of convenience things. Are there going to be any really crunchy talents, you know, things that raiders will want to have?
We definitely think there's a lot of them that raiders would want to have. Like, I think Corey gave some good examples of the conveniences that raiders would want to have. But it is an important philosophy of ours that we don't put character power in the guild talents. The reason we don't do that is because we'd be forcing it at that point, right? Everybody would feel like, well, the reason we can't beat this boss is because our guild level hasn't gotten up to 20 or whatever. We don't want that to be the case. We want it to feel like more like fun and perks.
All right, next question.
Hey there, guys. As part of this guild advancement system, are there going to any plans to introduce more guild bank slots or make those transferable from one server to another if a guild wants to transition from one server to another?
We definitely have the concept of being able to buy additional bank slots with guild currency. We don't know how many we're going to do yet or how big they are, but it's definitely something we want to do as a reward, that you could go ahead and buy a whole bank slot just with the currency.
We've also discussed the possibility of doing a guild transfer service, a lot like, you know, paid character change, that kind of thing. Because as we put more stuff into what a guild means and what it is, it's more and more important that that identity sticks as you switch from one server to another. So it's definitely important.
Thanks. Next question.
In the rated battleground system, how are you going to stop it from feeling really grindy since you don't lose rating? Like if someone plays 1,000 games and wins 30% versus someone who plays 200 games and wins 90%, how they would match up?
Presumably the way that it would stop from feeling grindy is a lot the same way that the arena system doesn't, you know, kind of stops being grindy, in that if you play in your first 4 wins, for example, you might get all the points you need for the week, right? You might hit your point limit for the week. And any games beyond that are just the possibility of raising your rating. Arena system's pretty similar to that in that, you know, once you've gotten to a rating that you're pretty satisfied with in terms of points, the only reason you keep playing is because you think you can advance your rating. Yet a lot of players kind of feel like 10 games and they're sort of done and it's all right. So there will be players out there that play a lot more games because they want to push their rating. But ultimately, you've got to get a group large enough together to be able to do that. It's not like you can just jump in the queue willy-nilly. It's a little bit harder organizationally to pull off.
Next question.
There are certain raid buffs like that are really strong in raids, but when you put them in an arena like Bloodlust, they can be, like, especially in 5v5, like, is there going to be any look how to make that more evened out?
I think that that's a legitimate problem. I think it's pretty isolated to Bloodlust. That's the only one I see that, you know, scales so well in 5v5 that the Shaman class suddenly becomes overrepresented in 5v5. So I think that's a case-by-case problem that we'll need to find a way to solve without breaking anything that's really fun and cool about the ability.
Thanks. All right, next question.
So with us getting new guild levels and all of that, have you guys considered adding in guild halls?
Guild halls is definitely something that we talked about. I think what it comes down to for us is we really had to decide what were we going to spend our time on and what features would mean the most to the players. You know, something like a guild hall is really cool to have from a visual standpoint to look at, but as far as benefits to the players, there's not a lot of things that we thought would actually really benefit you, because we want players to be in the cities doing their professions, running around the cities, you know. So we didn't want to take all those things and go and put them in like an instance where you're separated out from the rest of the world. So when we kind of put everything together, this really looked like the way to go, was to just go with the features that we thought players could use the most and leave the visual stuff. You know, if we have time to get to it, it would be great, but it wasn't high on the priority list.
Thanks. All right, next question.
With the guild leveling system, I know it might be kind of like a grind, but do you have any plans on diminishing returns so that at a certain point, like when you reach level 10, doing normal dungeons isn't going to be as effective. So that way you don't have people just power leveling their guild level and stuff like that.
I could imagine putting a limit on the amount of guild XP that a guild can get total in a day or something like that to keep it from just becoming, you know, pressuring the guilds into playing as much as they possibly can, or at least having those top 20 earners contribute as much as they possibly can in a day. But you know, at the same time, we would want those limits to be really forgiving. But that's still up for discussion. I don't know for sure exactly how we're going to handle that yet.
It's also going to scale by level. So for example, you know, and we're kind of looking at maybe like a 10 level range. So killing a boss between 1 and 10 would be worth a different amount of guild XP than killing a boss that's, say, level 80. So, you know, we don't want a guild just to take everyone and go run back to Dead Mines and kill Van Cleef, you know, week after week, because that's the way they would level it up. So we definitely want to scale it so that it feels like it's worth it to do that, you know, for the new people that are leveling up. But we don't want that to be the norm.
Thanks. All right. Looks like we have time for 2 or 3 more questions here. So, next question.
I'm just wondering if there's any system in place that will allow guilds to use the guild heirlooms for endgame rating. Are you guys planning on having that be weaker items like the current heirlooms? Anything that could maybe track with the guild levels such that they would continue to be useful for hardcore guilds versus casual guilds, that sort of thing?
I would say that it's definitely under consideration. It's one of those things that we'll talk about doing. If we feel like we can do it in a way that feels really good and doesn't end up feeling like less loot for an individual player or anything like that. Like I could see doing it as a bonus item drop on a boss, that kind of thing.
Definitely.
Thanks. All right. Next question.
Hi, I'm part of a fairly decent-sized 13 guild alliance. Each of these guilds has each of these guilds has their own personality, and will definitely probably be speccing out their guilds in different ways. But as part of a large alliance, we're also we have a lot of different PvP groups, and we also have different raid groups. Is there any way that we'll be able to kind of get some of the benefit, like say if we have like 50% of Guild A and 50% of Guild B, to kind of increase the personality of each of our PvP or raid groups?
This is where it gets complicated. I think that's the main reason for, in a situation like that, it's almost like those groups are so separated, they're almost like their own individual guilds. You know, so them speccing into, if, like you said, if there's a group that really likes PvP, then they should spec PvP and go that route if that's what they want to do. But the idea of merging them together and having them share abilities isn't something that we currently have on the table, like through an alliance or something like that.
Thanks. Okay, we have time for 1 more question. Okay, apparently 1 more after this one.
You guys discussed a lot of nice little guild conveniences, for example, showing the list of all the profession people in the guild. I was wondering if there's any plans to show, for example, show all the characters tied to a particular person. Like we have a lot of alcoholics in our guild who have upwards of 5, 6 characters in the guild, and it's hard to keep track of, you know, what character, who's on who belongs to who, or whose DKP belongs to whose character type deal. So, and the notes just sometimes aren't enough to keep track of all that. Thank you.
That's definitely something that we've talked about over the course of actually working on the system. And like you saw, there was a drop down there in that pane where the achievements were, or where the professions were. Achievements is an example of something else we were thinking about putting there, where you could see the ranks of different people. So I think it's just, that's something that we would look into. Definitely a great suggestion. And we've got room in the UI to do something like that. So it just comes down to, you know, where does it fit in the overall kind of, you know, priority list of what we want to get in there. But it's a great idea.
Thanks. All right, this is our last question for this panel.
Hi guys, I'm a really big fan of the WoW mobile armory and I use it all the time. But as a guild leader, there's a lot of things that I'd really like it to be able to do that I can't, like scheduling guild events mobily or just even looking at some other stuff that I don't have access to right now. With all these new abilities and other things you're going to be adding, is there going to be more integration with the mobile armory?
Well, there is more work that's going to be done on the mobile armory. They have more kind of feature plans that are going to be coming down the line for it. Those aren't things that we can talk about right now in this panel, but there will be more coming forward over time.
Great, thanks.
Hey there, Blizzard fans. Get ready because me and the band are going to bring down Blizzcon tonight!
Con 2009, and we are wrapping things up here. All the the panels are done, and now we're just getting ready for the closing ceremonies. I'm Jeff Keighley here with Kat Hunter and Joe Garcia as we get ready to celebrate all things BlizzCon and rock out with that man, the Prince of Darkness,
That is exactly
Ozzy Osbourne.
the way I want to go out with
It's going to be
Ozzy.
great. We're going to celebrate everything tonight. We've got everyone over in the main hall here ready for closing ceremonies, which will be Paul Sams will be on stage, who joined us here. Also Ozzy Osbourne and Level 80 Elite Tauren Chieftains. Quickly, guys, what was your favorite moment?
I just have to say everything's changed. I'm leaving here not knowing exactly what WoW is going to be like a year from now, and I love that feeling.
What about you, Jeff?
I love the fact that StarCraft, they decided to do the first-person perspective, the actual single-player campaign on the floor this year versus multiplayer, which is what they presented last year, to actually get to see the in-game cinematics, which is amazing for me, being an RPG player. So
Fantastic storytelling. Also Diablo 3, the announcement of the monk class. And then today they even broke news with Trisha Helfer from Battlestar Galactica. She's going to be one of the voices in StarCraft 2. So it's been an amazing BlizzCon, a lot of great memories, a lot of great games to play. Now we're going to head over to the closing ceremonies. Lots of great stuff. And remember, Ozzy Osbourne is coming up live in high definition. Enjoy the closing ceremonies of BlizzCon.